our journey with childhood cancer is really the point that our lives changed. You know, we were both working full-time and we were raising a family of 4.
And I realized at that point, we couldn't manage on our own. Like, I couldn't keep a job, have 3 other children, and be in the hospital with Riley. And so Karen, her daughter was playing soccer with Riley, and she came up to me, and she said, I'm really good at organizing people. I'll organize people, and I can make sure that you have whatever you need. And I'm like, oh, I think we're okay. I wasn't at the point where I was ready to accept help. And she just kept coming up to me. She's like, I'm really good at this. This is what I do really well. I can organize people. And I was like, no, I think we'll be okay. And then finally, like, I even told Kirk, I said, she keeps nagging me about this organizing people thing. And I'm like, and so one day she came up to me a couple days later, and I'm like, okay, if you want to do it, go ahead.
What all of that support allowed us to do is we were able to live without having to focus on our life and our children as having a sick one. We had a child that had cancer, but the rest of what this did for us is it allowed us to live.
We had this wonderful support from what we termed Riley's Army, which is a community that came together to support our family. And Riley was very aware that there were people that came and sat with her in the hospital while I worked a shortened day. People made us dinner. People reached out and helped sit with the kids so that we could trade places in the evenings. And one day I was in the hospital with Riley, and across the hall was a 1-year-old, and that 1-year-old didn't have anybody with him. And the baby was crying and not happy, and Riley questioned. She said, why does he not have what I have? And it spurred us to realize that everyone deserves what we were given. And so at that point, Riley's questioning spurred us to start Riley's Army that spring.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and your journey here?
Yes, I can. My name's Erin Ward, and I have a family with 2 little girls, one being little Violet, who at just 6 months old was diagnosed with severe congenital neutropenia, which then developed into JMML, which is a very rare form of leukemia. We actually started coming to this area for Duke to do the bone marrow transplant workup in July, and then we returned to Texas to pack up our lives and move here, and we ended up here around the end of August, and we've been here since. I have been able to work part of the time. When Violet began her transplant, I did take leave, and I took about 3 months of leave to full-time care for her, which absolutely was necessary. The Duke bone marrow transplant team has an internal network. The social worker team actually recommended Riley's Army as a great connection for us. Being an out-of-state family, there's some limitations as to what other organizations will do to support. I also remember going onto RileysArmyTriangle.com to find out about the organization, the story behind how the organization was created. I was curious. And I know there's a form on there that families can actually fill out to directly connect if they didn't have that ability through their social worker for whatever reason. You know, there's been times where just a text or a phone call has been probably the outreach that we all needed to know that there's people thinking of us while we're stuck in a hospital where it feels like nobody knows you're there, you know? From Riley's Army, some financial assistance, some emotional support. Mama Jean came and visited us in the hospital before the transplant began, and she was then and has been a true extension of our family. We're very appreciative of that.
Definitely say thank you to everyone who gives any amount of money, any amount of service to Riley's Army, prayer for the families. I once told Jean that no amount is too small. And she looked at me like, what? And what the important thing is any amount means so much to these families because they're being supported and loved. And your donations, your service to Riley's Army, your support, your prayers means the world to these families as they're battling childhood cancer.